Oh, can you unmute? Yeah. That's one. Was it to unmute the screen?
All right, can you guys hear us online all right?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Right.
So I'll start with the project selection timeline. We're currently at the TTAC and board review of the draft tip. Next week will be the TTAC and board, or next month will be the TTAC and board approval of the final tip, and then finally, award notifications will go out in July of 2025. So here are a summary of the project requests that went out with the February TTAC agenda. The project selection committee met in March to review and recommend funding the 3 higher scoring projects. And these are the 3 projects that were recommended to go on funding. For a quick summary, a total of 9.84 million have been recommended in awards throughout through 2031, and MAPA will work with sponsors and the Iowa Department of Transportation to program phases throughout 2026 to 2031 as it.
So we'll go back to STBG quick, because I know there was one project that did get submitted under STBG funding for Potawatomi County that was not recommended for approval by PROSCOM. I see John is here today, so John, if you'd like to speak to that.
Yeah, I was just curious why that wasn't funded when there's still a balance in the region. I guess, I mean, I lost keeping a balance. It's a needed project. I know there's some questions on flood resiliency, and if you look at the area, we have the Union Pacific and the Pigeon Creek levee on one side protecting Crescent, on the other side it's I-29, I-680, and we're inside the Missouri River levee, so the levee's been breached the 3 times we've been over top there. So the only place I'm putting water is against the railroad tracks, the interstate, or the city of Crescent. So I really didn't think it was a great idea to raise that road any. I got pictures of what the flooding looks like. You know, it's all over a quarter mile there of 1 to 2 foot water going over the road. So the flood study to do what needs to be done out there is probably bigger than can be done even with the budget we have, I guess I would like to see that funded.
So just for clarification for the group, Potawatomi County did submit those top 2 projects. The Old Norman Bridge Road project was the bridge project was recommended for approval and award by the project selection committee, whereas the Old Norman Bridge Road was not. The primary concerns, I believe, Scott, you were at that meeting, I wasn't, the court said that it was mostly a flooding issue and a low traffic volume concern. Is that right?
I believe that's right. Yeah.
So did you have anything else you wanted to say about what happened or the discussion that took place during that meeting?
I mean, I made a motion to approve all 4 projects. It did not pass, but I do think the Old Norman Bridge Road project ties in really well with the I-680 project, because it's kind of the same corridor in a sense as it leads into Crescent. I think they're all good projects, is what I'm trying to say, but I know the project selection committee approved 3 of the 4, so.
Is there, I mean, yes, it might be a low volume roadway for sure. In comparison to everybody here, it doesn't carry a high level for us, but more so those people are in your region. So do we adjust the boundaries so they can be in the RPA, or how are they being represented if they're not big enough to be represented here? Yes. So they're still in the region, you're getting per capita revenues from them.
Yeah, I think the primary opponents to this project were Matt Cox and some others from council. Is that right? So yeah, I wasn't too privy to that conversation. Of course, we have the recommendation from PROSCOM. Ultimately, the recommendation that goes forward from TTAC doesn't have to be the same. So we'll kind of open that up for discussion amongst the group here to kind of determine that if you would like to make a recommendation that project be funded moving forward, because there is enough funding in the STBG balance to cover the cost of that project. So I guess it's up to this body to determine what recommendation you would like to move forward.
Are you asking for recommendation?
I'm just opening for discussion.
Oh, okay.
Further to the group.
I mean, once again, I mean, the project selection committee, I made a motion to approve all four. I know there's other members here that are on the project selection committee that can weigh in as well, but.
Is there anyone else in attendance today that was at the PROSCOM meeting? Was that April or May? April, March, yeah.
Yeah.
Who would like to speak to this Old Mormon Bridge Road project?
Just so I'm clear,
Yeah.
they have the excess funding to cover the project.
Correct.
It's 4 million, you have a difference of 6, so you have 2 extra million in case other projects go over.
And that award would likely be higher than 4 million. Usually if it's programmed in an out year, then we add a surplus to that to account for inflation. I think it's 5%. Yeah, for every year out from the first immediate year that it's awarded. So it would be a little over 4 million if it did get awarded. Though I imagine it is still within the amount of funding that we have.
So it sounds like it was a majority of PROSCOM voted against the project or
Correct.
improvement, so it's interested in that part.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing, I wasn't at the PROSCOM meeting, so I figured it was Iowa, I wasn't paying too much.
That was undefined.
Better excuse than me, man.
Yeah, and I think based on, I'm going through the notes, Matt Cox raised concerns about the total score of the project. And just additional information about the project with regards to, again, some of the flooding, and some of the concerns with the total volume within that corridor. From a very quick look at, trying to look at the notes, that is what I got.
So I think we're hearing that, while within the greater MAPA region, it might be still home by Whatcom County. Just want to expound on some of those.
Well, it's also one of the, what? Is that bridge? It's not one of the bridges, that's not one of the bridges that gets flooded out, correct?
And that one, my daughter is the lights.
No.
It pretty much, the flooding pretty much starts kind of like at the base of the bridge to I-29 change.
I guess. Check with one more there.
And I think the point got bigger because it's not. Almost about some big battle. Not a situation plan here. Without pictures. Gotta keep one thing plan together. So if you see the top picture, you see the glow relief from I-29. Old Warren Bridge Road comes out Crescent. 1 out to 29. Highlighted in yellow is the Union Pacific Railroad. It kind of acts as a levee. Then you have in red, there's the Pigeon Creek levee. Then we have the Canadian National Railroad right before the interstate. Then further over is Honey Creek levee. So when the Missouri River comes out, it's clear up by DeSoto Bend. It's behind the levees. So the flood study is hard because the levees already failed. You can see the river tracks the water against it. That's the Canadian National, just downstream of Old Mormon Bridge Road. Couple of pictures of the damage in Old Mormon Bridge Road. The middle picture on the bottom is what the road looked like. That was 19 there. It looked amazingly similar, 19 or 11, 19, and 24. Then the bottom right is looking towards inland skylines from the bridge on Old Mormon Bridge Road. It goes over the Union Pacific Railroad, so you can just see the volume of water and it's moving. I don't know how to contain that without challenging the levees in the railroad. The Union Pacific Railroad carries coal to the Council's power plant. I don't think that's I'm the least important person out there, just looking at everybody else's infrastructure. 29's obviously a downstream of all this and gets over top as well. Pretty much the railroads and the levees are diverting all that back into the river once it's out.
So what,
Oh, good.
with issues like this, when a project, if the project were awarded, it gets into. How does, what's typically the outcome of a project that's periodically frequently flooded? How does that
It's
shake out?
odd that it's behind the levees, I guess. I mean, it shouldn't be flooding, but it's.
Yeah. I mean, and
That's
this is
the-
a
So
is it the mill and resurface, or what is this?
this is a reconstruction. So if you see that second picture down from the bottom, this thing's been undermined almost a lane width, and we go in there flowable. So we make this repair, and this is between the, you can also see the quarry in there, so. The DOT and the leveling, you know, they got the interstate open quick, but we were out there pretty much in that bottom corner running flowable in those puddles to get the rut open, and we scraped off whatever we could of the overlays that came off. Just got people out from the interstate, so there's. I forgot what the traffic volume on there should be. Several thousand vehicles a day, which is high for me, and it's probably low.
Yeah, I think it's like 4,500 or something.
So this is was a former DOT road transferred to us as well.
Used to be 988.
Does this, with the flood damage to it, was this not covered under FEMA?
They pay for the repairs, so as you know, when FEMA comes out, they're after the event. We made repairs to get this thing open. Yeah, there were some panels that came out, a few other things, but most of this was fixed with local fill underneath it to get people back to the interstate. So once 29's closed, there really is no route in the county of Old Lincoln Highway, which takes you up to some railroad tunnels. If you ever watch the news, it's like a truck every 4 hours gets stuck in this tunnel. Or they can go, I think the DOT detours back to 35, which is through Des Moines. So we've got.
Other problems that you.
I lost most of that. Railroad underpass is on my to-do list. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
But lots of box trucks.
Ours, it's like a can opener.
But just to me, looking at the flooding, there's not a solution. I can't raise this thing enough to divert the water, and where the water goes is not, you know, we're in population centers, we're into those railroad tracks. 29 is, if I get over top, there's no way 29 is not getting over top just because it's the same volume of water being diverted right into 29.
Can I make a recommendation to send this back to the ProCom for further review?
So I think wise we wouldn't be able to do that, would we? But it has to go out to public comment, so the current recommendation is ProCom recommended it's 3
That's what's in the draft too.
in the draft.
But I think what Mike's recommending is proceeding with the pros con recommendation as is, and then for the final tip, further consideration of this project. Which should be. Yeah, that's what the number is.
So we have a recommendation from ProScom. They voted on it. And we have a request to add this project back. I think what I'm hearing about, the flooding issues, I guess I would have concern about funding a project, building it, and having it flood out again shortly after it's built and funded. And so I think there's a lot of risk on that funding, even though we have the money available. It's like, is this a good use of that money? If we're in a flood and repair cycle now already and solving that particular issue, is this a good candidate for a larger funding project? That's a concern.
Well, one of the things that John encountered in 11 and 19, and we encountered on 680, was the water going over top and then undermining underneath. So what we did is we put flex mat on the south side, which is something John can do to eliminate or at least prevent some of that from scouring underneath the road. I mean, it's a flood mitigation measure, I guess is what I'll call it.
Sure. That requires a lot of maintenance as well. And so instead of repairing your roadway after a flood, you're repairing your flex mat.
Yeah,
Or both.
unfortunately, the scale of the flooding, I mean, we put 50 square miles underwater there. I mean, the scale of flooding is, this would all have to be a bridge. I don't know how else to mitigate
I
what that is.
totally understand your concerns and, you know, it's a really unfortunate situation. I would be concerned about funding a project that could be very short.
So of those 44, a little over 4,400 cars a day, is there a sense how many are people that live in Crescent and go to work and come back home, or is it through traffic? And there are things that
It's definitely intertract for
is it
the most part. Yeah, there's some industry there, but it's for the most part, there's some businesses there that serve along, like the Graham Gravel Working once in a while. So a lot of little things moved over there, smaller contractor.
Yeah, northwest Potawatomi County, when you look at the census data, a lot of folks work in Omaha.
Yep.
Or Omaha Metro, the Brazos side of the
we just talked about DOT freight staff yesterday about updating the freight study. We did mention that the north-south that's until 20 and kind of like talk about that access through those railroad tunnels includes freight traffic, but I think that there's also just maybe what's the solution, I guess, but what is that out of distance travel that folks need to do if they don't have one bridge road and maybe it's otherwise.
So this body's being asked to make an action on pros cons recommendations. And we could, move forward with 3 projects we have now, and then go back to pros con for the next round of this project, and that's an option too. Yeah, I'm still there. I just wonder if it isn't maybe a candidate for a project that would ultimately solve the issues that you have. And maybe there's a different funding would be more sizable to get you to the ultimate end game need here. If we're hearing that this award wouldn't solve the problems of frequently periodic flooding that Washington Bay. So I would make a motion to accept pros and cons recommendations. For public comment.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Okay. Open the public comment period.
So now we'll go to TAP CRP. So we might have been a little premature on the motion. So we can do one separate motion for the SDPG projects, and that's fine. And then we'll go and present quickly on the TAP CRP projects. And I guess by that time, we'll entertain an additional motion to recommend the TAP C recommendation on project funding for this funding stream. So for TAP and CRP, we did get the following projects requested in our cultural projects this year for Nebraska. There are 7 projects here for total request. I should make that a different color font, apologies. Total funding request of just about $12 million. You can move the camera over there. And we did have total funding availability of about 18 million. So these are in thousands. All projects were recommended for funding with one exception, and that one exception is the Metro Transit feasibility study up to Blair and Fort Calhoun. The only reason that project was not funded under this funding stream is because MAPA has a different funding stream through CMAQ. So we're going to fund that project directly through our CMAQ program. And the rest of these projects were recommended by TAPC for funding for a total award amount of about $15 million. We go to Iowa. In Iowa, we had 2 projects submitted under the TAP CRP program, totaling about $600,000. Again, we have enough funds to cover both of those projects. So if we can do next slide, please. Then our total recommendation was to fund both. The TAP recommendation was to fund both of those 2 projects. So if we go into our last slide for this one. A quick summary of some of the discussion that was had at the TAPC meeting. There was some concern raised over the longevity of TAP CRP funds moving into a new funding bill. So Iowa DOT did distribute to us funding projections out through 2029 for both TAP and CRP funds. So MAPA's recommendation to the TAP committee was to program projects under the assumption that these formula funding streams are going to continue at the same expected rates. And historically, formula funds have been retained across funding bills. There might be different priorities with this administration that might cause some change to that, but it's all forecasting at this point. We can't say for sure what that's going to look like. So projects have therefore been programmed under the assumption that TAP and CRP allocations will be retained. Award letters, when they go out for all projects under both STBG and TAP and CRP, do contain language stating that the award is contingent upon funding availability. So we'll just make sure that when those awards go out this year, that language is emphasized due to the volatility in the administration at the moment. And should the funding change before these program projects are let, then TAPC will reconvene to discuss how the program might need to be adapted to make account for those changes. As I mentioned, the Metro Transit Study is going to be funded under CMAQ, so TAPC recommends awarding all projects, all other projects with those totals of about 15.7 mil in Nebraska and 630,000 in Iowa. So do we have any discussion, questions on those projects? Not the map, that fiscal constraints.
Go through the fiscal constraint for Iowa and Nebraska here real quick. So first for STBG, we begin fiscal year 2026 with a beginning balance of 16.685 million. And then we will carry that through to 2031 for a final available balance of 8.4 million for the next projects. And then for TAP, we'll start with 1.6 million, and then we will actually go negative in 2027, but we received guidance from Iowa DOT that as long as we are positive in fiscal year 4, which is 2029 at 483,000, we're good. And then in 2031, there will be 998,000 available. And then finally for CRP, 2026 begins with 615,000, and then in 2031 there will be 1,325,000 available. And then for Nebraska, STBG, the 2026 beginning balance is 10,225,000, and then in 2031, 12,837,000, and then TAP starts with 2,127,000 in 2026, and then in 2031 there is 1,099,000 available, and then finally for Nebraska CRP, 2026 begins with 2,400,000, and in 2031 there is 1,867,000 available.
So I guess with that, we would entertain a motion to recommend the MAPA board to approve the new project awards for the draft fiscal 26 TIP. This motion would be an exclusion of the STBG awards, which we did cover in an earlier motion during this meeting. So this motion would cover the TAP and CRP recommendations as well as the fiscal constraint.
Motion
draft in general.
Motion to approve TAP, CRP, and fiscal constraints tables.
Second.
I wanted to follow up from the TAPC committee. Thought I would have more to say, but that's been something to say. Thank you. That was great. But yeah, just really highlighting that the CRP funding is considered the most vulnerable. And if you look at the fiscal constraint tables, it highlights pretty clearly that there are a couple relatively large projects in out years in the Nebraska CRP program. Sorry, project cost there in 2027, 7 million, and 2031, 6 million. So very large projects that are eligible under each that are currently listed in our CRP. So just making it very clear that we are aware there is potential uncertainty with the funding availability, and we want to make sure that the applicants for the projects that are listed in CRP are clear with that as well. Lindsay highlighted subject to funding availability, but that is a point of uncertainty that the committee decided we do want to recommend projects and assume that the current guidance will continue until we hear difference, but it's something we didn't have a better answer for. The Iowa side on the CRP, there you can see that under the next several years, there are no projects programmed, so little different situation in Iowa. They could decide to submit and approve projects there in the future. There's not as much funding available in the Iowa CRP program anyway, but just a little different strategy on that side. But in Nebraska, yes, projects are recommended. So again, to those who have projects listed as CRP funded, just making it abundantly clear. And hopefully eventually we will work through the uncertainty so we can all move long-term projects forward.
Yeah, and I would just note, like currently with the IIJ and funds authorized through FY26, not a concern there, but Senate and House are working through transportation reauthorization. And they've just done some initial stakeholder outreach, which we've talked about here at TTAC in the past. And I would say the word that we've heard is most formula programs have a lot of support in Congress. And so we'll just have to see how they play. They always play with the numbers, you know, every year, every time they redo this, but we'll see what they do. But those are programs, CRP, I would agree, probably will take some other form if it is.
And remind us, TAP is formula.
TAP is a set aside of STBG. And STBG is a formula based program.
Yeah, but CRP is not.
CRP isn't a set aside of STBG as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they're all, it's all big pot of money and then set asides.
So we have a motion on the floor from Eric, seconded by Austin.
I'll second.
And it's all.
Second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Okay, motion carries. Okay. Open a public comment period. MAPA asks that the recommendation be made to open a 25-day public comment period to draft it.
Yeah, so aside from the project work, there's some changes we've made to the text this year. Most of them are with regards to compliance with new executive orders and federal highway administration guidance. Just watching out for certain words that do not align with the executive orders. Draft summary is available online. All we're really doing is motion approve the public comment period.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Good second.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same. Okay, motion carries. Unified Planning Work Program Approval and Cleanup Amendment 1 to the fiscal year 25 UPWP. Carlos will present.
Yep, so this is one of the things that we end up doing near the fourth quarter of every year. This is for fiscal year 2025, our unified work program. Here are the big changes. Overall, some of the direct labor has changed. In other words, we spent less than we had originally anticipated. I think the biggest one, and we'll get into this, is the contract and subrecipients. In the start of the year, we usually are very bright-eyed and very optimistic in our approach to trying to approve contracts and subrecipients. Towards the end of the year, we realized we're too bright-eyed and too optimistic with a reduction in 60% of our original 25-year budget. Next slide. So I'll get into some of the things that impacted this. One of the things that our team, our group in transportation has experienced this whole year has been staff turnover and attrition. It takes several months for our staff to get trained up and be comfortable with some of the work and technical aspects of the work that we're doing. But when you switch over to new staff, it takes a while to get to that point. So that's one of the factors. The other factor affecting some of the direct costs and fixed costs are vacancy savings. We intended to fill a position that was ultimately not filled at MAPA. And then overly optimistic on our contracts. I think we, and as we'll see later, we're gonna take a more realistic picture of what we're actually going to contract out. And doing a better job. You know, two of the biggest impacts to that have really been the 5310 programmatic awards that show up in our budget. We subscribed over 1 million, so it was 1.1 million worth of projects that ultimately resulted in less than 100,000 of expenditures and contracts. So I think we're overcorrecting or putting too much emphasis on what we think we might get through. But ultimately, how do we be realistic that's just not the timing and how those contracts go do not lend themselves to expedited contract approval. The other one has been, we have been in this limbo area for CMAQ dollars and trying to understand how those dollars impact our contracts here in MAPA. Again, we're taking a more realistic view and working with local partners to remap that and understand that. And last but not least, our staff has been focused on developing an on-call master services contract to help execute some of these contracts that we have pending. So we're working through it. And I think the biggest thing we're requesting this year is to de-obligate 250,000 from our fiscal year 2025 revenues of PL funding to carry over immediately to fiscal year 2026. I think that's the major big impact that we're trying to see. Ultimately, we're seeking a motion to approve this amendment to our 2025 year budget.
Take a question. Second.
Yeah.
Any discussion? And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Final fiscal year 2026 UPWP.
So this is our 26 current year, now new year, Unified Board Program. It's federally supported transportation planning activities based on PL FTA funding. The final is due to our state and federal partners June 1st of each year. Here's a little breakdown of how the funds are. Red is Nebraska, black is Iowa. Iowa represents about 8% of our total revenue coming into MAPA for transportation funding purposes. And the bulk of the money coming in from formula PL dollars. Next slide. Here's a quick overview of how the breakdown is for this year. One of the things that has changed from the last time, we ramped down the total contract costs. That number used to be closer to 4 million, but now we ramped it down to 2.6 million in contracts. Labor and direct costs have remained pretty steady despite that reduction in total contracts. With that, we've also reduced our federal funding request and reduced our matching requirement. Next slide. The four major activities of work are management and administration, regional transportation planning, TIP and local projects, and complete streets funding. These are the breakdowns of funding and hours. Overall, again, this is slightly lower than the original draft. Next slide. And then as we were taking a closer look at some of the contracts we were looking at, these are the ones that came up. And being more realistic, we, instead of doing over $1 million of 5310, we ramped that down to something a little bit more realistic, where contracts are already in hand and willing to spend. So we've taken a little bit more serious look at how these contracts affect our budget, working with our finance department to ensure that we're meeting our expectations. And let's see, I think that's pretty much it. So overall, I think the biggest change here has been a reduction in total contract cost by over $1 million from the original draft. Next slide. Basically, the big changes from the draft to this final have been changing the number from 210 to 410 So just some programmatic work on our end, reviewing and addressing all the comments from FHWA, FTA, Nebraska, and Iowa DOT. During the public comment period, no public comments were received. Overall, there was a small reduction in contracts and subrecipients. And this final work program is due to our state federal partners June 1st. So we are seeking favorable approval to recommend to the board.
I would make that motion.
Second.
Second.
Any comments? Discussion?
Thank you, MAPA, for all your great work. Appreciate it. Glad to see that you're funded for continuing everything in the future.
All your comments. We need an action.
Yeah, I was gonna say, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Motion carries. Thank you. Critical urban freight corridor designation.
Good morning, everybody. Next up is. Just a quick reminder, the National Highway Freight Network, composed of a number of components is established. Basically provide funding for improvements to the freight network. We're going to talk about critical urban freight corridors today. Next slide. So as an MPO, we can designate these critical urban freight corridors with consultation with the state, in this case, Iowa Department of Transportation, gave us a request. They're updating the state freight plan. Part of that process is to review and to add mileage. And what's unique here in particular, in the latest transportation bill, the statewide amount of critical urban freight corridor doubled to 150 miles from 75. So a couple of requirements. I'm going to go through those 4 elements on the following slides, but it must be within the urbanized area. There is a story map. There have been some changes, so if you looked at it a couple of days ago, it's going to look different this morning, but generally the information and our recommendations are the same. Go to the next slide. The first 2 characteristics really looking to provide access to intermodal connections. Federal Highway designates intermodal facilities that are shown on the map below and as a triangle, but we know that there are regional freight providers, generators that are important. So providing one example there, roadway already designated as a critical urban freight corridor, providing access to the Iowa Interstate System yard in Council Bluffs. So it gets it to the primary highway freight system or the interstate that's not already designated, and that's that blue dash line, or another intermodal freight facility. Secondly, and this is a new one here, for B is an alternate route for a primary highway freight system. So I-80 and I-29 through our MPO region provides just really probably the majority of our freight through movement. And so we're recommending that the Highway 275 or Iowa 92 be added to the critical urban freight corridor. Metric is a little bit over 4 miles as an alternate to traffic if we do have something that shuts down I-80 or I-29. The next slide. And so serves as a freight generator. This is one of the maps that's going to look different now in the story map. We're just changing the way it's designated. Historically, that segment of South Expressway going north from I-80, then down 23rd Avenue, and then splitting out in 2 directions on 29th Avenue, pardon me, to 2 sets of grain elevators. It's an example. We're going to redesignate each of those as individual roadways just to prevent confusion as we communicate that to the DOT and the Federal Highway. And then finally, regional importance and just highlighting here the significance of these roadways, these networks, and the bridge crossings between Nebraska and Iowa. So these are our recommendations. The top table are new proposed segments. South Expressway just a little bit further north from the existing to provide access to some additional freight needs. Adding again that corridor of US 275 connecting Nebraska through Iowa and back to I-29. Just a redesignation, acknowledging that we're reaching 1 set of grain elevators is an addition for Iowa DOT, and then South 24th Street the truck volumes that we saw from 2024, we believe warrants an additional segment north-south from 275. So in a nutshell, the longer dashed items are the recommended new proposed critical urban freight corridors, and then those dots are the redesignated, and they're just individual segments. Any questions on recommended designations? Okay, we'll go to the next slide. So this is short term. This was a pretty quick turnaround. The state freight plans, boy, it doesn't feel like I've been here 6 years, but they updated a fairly good clip. And so we've known that. Carlos talked about it. One of those items on our UPWP this year is a regional freight study. We know that is frankly overdue, and we're going to take a harder look. So I did have some questions from members of TTAC about how we really do this. We're interested in giving you as members more information and useful data for planning and just kind of tying together a couple things that we've talked about today. So very excited about that here later this fall. And then Nebraska, we're partnering with Nebraska as well. They're looking to kick off their state freight plan update. So we'll be talking to you more about that as well. Here's the recommended motion from MAPA Board to approve the proposed critical urban freight corridors. So
Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same. Motion carries. Discussion items. Public comment. Members of the public will be offered an opportunity to speak. Anybody in the public? Okay. State and federal policy updates.
Sure, so we're reaching the tail end of the state legislative session. We just want to go ahead and move to the next slide, please. Just some updates here. You know, I don't know, it's probably likely that both legislatures will be closed the next time TTAC meets. So I just want to give kind of a brief update. We'll do a wrap up next month as well. But in Iowa, a lot of the discussion this week is obviously on things like the budget and eminent domain for things like the carbon pipeline. But just kind of an update on some things relevant to MAPA and its planning and transportation in particular. The hands-free bill, that safety bill was passed. I think it was actually the first bill signed into law this session by Governor Reynolds. Also, SF 592 was a change to the smart planning guidance in Iowa around accessory dwelling units and allowing those under specific circumstances, but pretty broadly within single-family zoning across the state. So that's kind of a policy innovation we saw there. And then HF 903, farm to market road partial payments, I think just some changes to state law about what's allowable for some of that contracting on farm to market roads as well. In Nebraska, we haven't seen so many bills get signed that are relevant to us, but a few things are advancing. So LB 530, these are the criminal penalties. This came out of the Justice Committee. So this is for vulnerable road users, cyclists, pedestrians, motorcyclists, people using a mobility device, and really steepening the penalties for those bills. So not explicit to us, but I do think it's interesting around that definition of a vulnerable road user, the state's requirement under the IIJA to do a vulnerable road user assessment that we're carrying through. And so obviously a big part of our CSAP is strategies to reduce those types of fatal and serious crashes. This is more of a bill on the enforcement side. One thing I'd like this committee to pay a little special attention to is LP 558, which is would create a statewide infrastructure task force. Kind of a strange task force in terms of Nebraska having representatives from the executive branch and the legislative branch, which doesn't happen usually. So I'm not exactly sure where that'll end up. But really to look at funding within the state. If you recall, maybe 2011, now Senator Fisher, then State Senator Fisher led kind of a similar effort to really kind of reshape how the state invested in local projects, buyback programs that have kind of followed on to that. And this is really kind of, I think, the spiritual successor of it. I'm looking at federal funding, NDOT's investment priorities. You may recall that 2011 effort made asset preservation kind of the central focus of NDOT without specific and additional priorities. So as MAPA's planning through MTIS has evolved, as the state and other things, kind of really just trying to organize ourselves to take advantage of federal funding. We want to make sure that we're taking advantage of that. So as that task force gets named, if it's finally approved, it'd be a good opportunity just to stay engaged with reshaping how the legislature looks at infrastructure investment across the state, both for the DOT's priorities and for local priorities and things that touch state funding in particular. So update there. And then the latest budget proposal, compromise, whatever you want to look at. One program just of note is the Economic Opportunity Program. That was removed from the budget. It had been kind of previously funded around $6 million on an annual basis. This is that really kind of similar to RISE in Iowa, kind of looking at those opportunities that align with NDED's kind of industry priorities. So, you know, agriculture, food production, some other kind of manufacturing type of things where there was an infrastructure investment associated with those. We haven't seen too many of those projects here in the metro. There's been a lot of interest, but not a lot of final awards. The latest budget compromise kind of closed that deficit. It does remove that program in its current state. You know, I mean, it's, you know, they've been talking about it for a while, so we know there might be back in. But the latest proposal that had been advanced, that was out. So just a note there. And then on the federal side, you know, we'll keep you apprised as we hear things. A lot of that's going to look like stakeholder input. But if you have specific priorities, I would say right now is a great time to connect with senators, congresspeople about federal aid highway investment and priorities you want to see advanced because they are listening and they're trying to collect all the information. So more to come there.
All right, so we've mentioned a couple times, but the notice of funding opportunity for Safe Streets is open for FY25. Our consultant team are supporting the City of Omaha drafting implementation grant application. We're working with a couple of partners to identify some demonstration or future planning. If you want support and would like to submit for planning for demonstration or implementation, please reach out to me or safestreets@mapacog.org. That'll get it to a number of folks here. So planning and demonstration 2-page narrative. We have the data that you need to submit the implementation grants or 12-page narrative. And so we're really focused, we're really excited. Just a couple snapshots of what's up there. I will note that if you would like to use the Safe Streets for All grant program, please get your MOUs through your leadership. And if you need help, we can present. We've been to a couple city council meetings over the past couple of weeks. We're here to support you. We'd like to be successful. This is a really pretty huge opportunity for the region. So any questions, please reach out. Additionally, NDOT has just released AASHTO where safety is available for all member jurisdictions, so public agencies. And I will ask, you know, you think outside the box, I would say the biggest users right now are law enforcement in our metro region, using it to kind of use target enforcement to understand where and what kinds of crashes are occurring. We're very excited about it. We received training as an organization and we have users within MAPA. We're gonna find ways to tailor this, you know, as a tool for you. Has the ability to query crashes, and that's what's shown on the screen, but it also has an opportunity to really kind of look at segment and intersection solutions. And so we're gonna have to work with the state right now. You know, the tool as developed looks at state-based projects, so there will be some more urban area things that I think we'll identify as we go into the tool and want to help develop projects. But ultimately, as we go through our project selection process, updates is going to be a tool that we will use, and we'll be expecting jurisdictions to do their safety analysts work through this tool so that we're consistent. And the benefit is it's going to use all the approved CMFs and safety performance functions and things identified with our data through the state. So it just makes applying for things such as Highway Safety Improvement Program funds or other safety projects and funding sources just that much easier. And for MAPA, it makes it consistent. So I think that for those of you that have submitted projects in the past, this has always kind of been a challenge to describe how your project promotes or improves safety, and this will just standardize. So you can send an email with your request, email address below. If you have any additional questions, please reach out. We'll be having we'll work with NDOT to let you know of upcoming trainings so that you're aware of opportunities. But any interest you have, we would like to find out how you want to use it and how we can promote that, because it's really a pretty powerful tool.
Move over.
Started, okay. Let's see, okay, Highway 50 from 370 to L Street. All the bridge work is done. Right now they're working on they finished the mill and fill from Sac Brothers to the bridge over the Tapio Creek. They're working out the intersection of Harrison Street, turning it into a double turning lane, double left turn lane in all directions. Dodge Street, 192nd. We're shooting for an August completion there. We've got the divergent diamond set up, but it's just a single lane in each direction. As they're finishing off the edges, taking out the temporary pavement, putting back curb and gutter that belongs there. So that's moving along. Dodge Street, Skyline to 168th. We're looking for May completion of all that work. Right now, they're working on the 180th Street bridge. And they're doing the same thing they did down on 168th. Replacing some worn out pavement approaches. And let's see, Highway 75, from 34 to Q Street, that work is resumed, it's night work. They are now sawing and sealing joints, and it ends up getting a concrete sealer when they're all finished. 480 Missouri River Bridge, October 26th completion. The bridge painting and deck repairs are ongoing right now. They've got the traffic eastbound or westbound down to one lane, and you can't get off on Dodge Street. You have to go up to 14th, I believe, yeah. And the 12th Street Bridge, it should be done in December there, but right now we've got the exit closed. And we'll reopen it, see when they think. Mid-June before the series starts. I guess they had some conflict with the railroad underneath there. Let's see, the westbound CD Road from 680 to Q Street, they're done with that. They finished up the striping, we're out of there. On 680, we're putting in new high mast towers. There will be at 100, I-80 and L, 680 in Pacific, 680 in Fort, 680 and 133, and they stuck one in at 480 and 30th Street. That's one set, and the second set is 680 itself, 72nd Street, 680, Highway 75 or 48th Street, and the 30th Street interchange on Florida Bridge. I-80 westbound, Q to Giles, underway, adding a lane from Q to Giles and widening the bridge by the airport there. And westbound traffic, I'm sure you know, is reduced to 2 lanes. And they're also painting the Harrison Street Bridge over 80 while they're got it closed off. And then the continuation of that job is 80 westbound off ramp to 50th, Highway 50. They're adding a lane there, westbound traffic reduced to 2 lanes. And eastbound traffic is reduced to 2 lanes while they're working on the bridge over Giles. And then another one a little farther out west, 275 from Nebraska 64 to Dodge Street. That's pavement repair and joint crack sealing. And we're gonna repair the high friction surface on the viaduct by Waterloo. I'm sure you know, kind of coming along. And well, we got one down there at Highway 50 and Highway 31, just on this side of the Platte River. We're widening that little intersection. Give them a turn lane to turn onto 31. And then Dodge Street, 156 to 132nd, that's started up. We're gonna redo the bridge deck repairs, just like we've been doing farther west at 156th, 144th, and 132nd. And yeah, And right now they're working on the 144th, the street bridge. And that is, well, we got another one on Dodge Street, starts in July, it's night work. 161st to 127th, that'll actually be down on Dodge Street. Night work and a little overlay. And that is it.
Nothing specifically from me, I guess maybe more of a question, we don't have anyone from Vista or something here, do we?
No, which.
You'll take the plaque. We did, Morris touched on the work that we're doing at 144th Highway 50 in Harrison right now. We do have we've been getting a couple complaints recently, and it's more or less communication issues, just making sure everyone's on the same page. We're at least matching up with our messaging. La Vista appears to be doing some work at the intersection or adjacent to the intersection of Harrison and Giles. And I believe there's an additional message board. And that one I'm not familiar with, but there's a message board at 144th and Harrison going eastbound that talks about work beginning on the 19th. I don't know if that is the city, if that's Sarpy. I believe that's outside of La Vista's corporate limits, but I don't know how Harrison's generally handled between the city and Sarpy. But it seems like we have a few projects overlapping, and I don't know if we were fully aware of those impacts. So I guess just making sure we're communicating.
Okay, do you know Jeff Content? Or Pat Dowds?
I know Pat, I
I
at least have a message to him.
Jeff has been in contact with Barb and they've been coordinating. Generally, there's a multi-jurisdictional agreement, it's not a real agreement between, Bellevue, Omaha, Ralston, Sarpy County, Douglas County, for maintenance of Harrison Street. Generally, La Vista handles everything that is within their jurisdictional boundary. We don't do a lot of exchange there, so anything that is on the south side of Harrison, the eastbound side of Harrison, La Vista does. And so they've had a large panel repair project. They're struggling with CSR. I would suspect that if that's at 144, it's probably an advanced warning indicating their panel repair project. Again, I talked to Jeff last week about it. Obviously, Omaha gets a lot of those calls as well. The public is not happy with what's going on, but I know Jeff has been coordinating for.
Okay, I know there's a lot of heartburn in that area right now with backups and everything, but I don't think our project manager was fully aware of the messages or of the adjacent work, and I wasn't in Barb's town at the moment, so I was fielding questions, so I was just trying to chase down if everyone was aware or who was the responsible party for some of the work. More or less a curiosity.
I don't have anything additional today. Just a couple updates on our projects. 48th Street is currently closed between Harrison and Q Street. Ongoing work for our upgrade project, reconstruction project, and that core work. I hate talking about bridges in this meeting. 72nd Street Bridge is supposed to be partially open by Memorial Day. That would be great. Don't call me a liar.
Why don't you to me, man? I don't use that road. I know better.
I live in Ralston.
Jeez.
That's my work. 250 Cumberland, our roundabout project is still on track there. We've got some paving that's about to begin, or it should begin today. The streetcar bridges, the Harney Street Bridge is currently out, is on track to be finished by December 1st. Hawkins is doing a bang up job there. The overall streetcar project, we're finalizing negotiations with Kiewit as our CMAR contractor for that project. We have a utilities package that's separate from that. It's going into Blackstone currently. It's at Midtown Crossing on Farnham. We've got a bid package coming out for Utilities East project, which would be Farnham and Harney, east of 480. That project is set to kick off later this year. One project update that will probably come before this board at some point in time is we received an award last year for some lane configurations, multimodal and safety project on Center Street. Lindsay and I were kind of involved in that because of the upcoming project with I-80. We have decided to push that project back because we expect overflow traffic from I-80 will probably want to use Center Street, particularly through the center. And so we are planning to delay that project. We'll get a request in the past. With that, we are just in general having a lot of public issues with safety projects, particularly roundabouts. We have one project that's pending that will likely not happen at this point. Just because of some public opposition to the project. So I guess that would make an appeal to the safety-minded folks in this room, this audience, when Omaha has safety projects, important projects like the roundabout intersections that we can potentially get some support, some counter arguments to the public opposition you tend to give us.
Do you guys have a video that's gonna demonstrate how that?
We do, we actually, you know, that's a good question. We actually have a really cool video that we paid to have produced. There was a guy that did this video on YouTube called Tiny Intersections, and it's a real cinematic view of just intersections. We saw that and we said, hey, can you come produce a video for us of roundabout flow? And he did. It's pretty cool. It's out on our Vision Zero website and Public Works website. But yeah, we've got all kinds of informational.
We use those too for the public information meetings, just so people can get a feel for what they are. We're proposing to in our district this year, and I know there's gonna be opposition to it.
I think Lincoln's probably a good example of, because you go, I want to say 15 years ago, when they started their roundabout stuff, they had major opposition, and it took probably about 10 years before people started buying off and getting to understand how they work, the less severity of the accidents. And now they're pushing for more roundabouts, the public is there. So I think, you know, as much as we can push on our end for them, you know, it's a matter of patience in the sense of putting in where we can get them to understand and go from there. I mean, I've got one area where you know, they're screaming for a traffic signal, and I'm like, hey, you know, it's really not warranted, but I do a roundabout, and they're like, no, we don't want a roundabout. It's like, well, you're screaming about traffic and this will help. No, we don't want a roundabout. So yeah, okay, well,
I
explains it is.
Yeah, one of the larger issues that we tend to face, and obviously looking at the city of Omaha geographically, we're a quarter century from being built out, essentially. So our capital program is somewhat shifting. We still have some arterial projects left to do, but we have more of a future focus on more of an internal safety program that is more upgrades. So we're working in environments that are built residential areas. And so the bigger challenge that we're having, I think more so than a general opposition to roundabouts, is, you know, when we need to acquire right of way, and oftentimes it's not even taking land, it's construction business, where people are opposed to that, and it's the construction itself. You know, for instance, the project that's currently in question, the larger concerns of the neighborhood are, I'm concerned about the construction period where there's going to be cross traffic, detour traffic, dual traffic that's impacted. So it's these areas that are established neighborhoods where we're seeing some safety issues. From a political standpoint, there hasn't been the will of a lot of elected officials to say, no, this is a long-term benefit of our community, and those benefits outweigh some short-term inconvenience. So having a voice of, hey, you know, safety is an important thing, and we need to make sure that it gets addressed is, I guess, what I'm asking for. Some awareness and potential advocacy there.
I guess I'll offer what the action plan clearly identified is, if you get in a crash in this signalized intersection, it's usually oftentimes more likely to result in fatal or serious injury. So I mean, I know people don't like numbers and stark numbers.
I usually can't even get to those numbers.
I know. And so that's what we've seen. Our action plan, truth be told, is full of roundabouts. So, you know, I think to get to zero in our region, especially in built areas and future areas. So the We Step Partners kind of built it into, it's a safety, but it's an operational benefit. Those are different roadways. And another thing they talked about was just sheer cost. I mean, they're not operating and maintaining a signalized intersection. You're not sending law enforcement there when power lines go down. So it still operates even when you don't have power. But those are hard arguments to make. I understand when you're talking about disruption to a community.
Yeah, and just an interesting recent example. To me, the dumb nature of the conversations we had a committee meeting recently where, you know, the first item on the agenda was Vision Zero. What are you doing? We got to do more for safety. Public Works, you need to really drive the safety issue home. And 3 points down on the agenda was why we put in all these rounds.
Like, are you looking for someone to dress up like a high school kid and say, hey, kids, I like roundabouts too? Is that kind of like a professional set of speakers to come out and support these things? Or is it more education and on the ground, knocking on doors with some advocates talking about some safety?
I mean, yes,
Like, what are
these
these
issues of, you know, right of way,
no one likes it.
construction in established neighborhoods. These tend to be, I don't know. Do you feel like that's an accurate?
It's my project. Yeah, I just think in East Omaha, we have all these access points through neighborhoods, so there's a lot more cut through traffic during construction, and that's what people get upset about. When you're doing the major arterials, we've already kind of consolidated access to 160 East Street, but I mean, you can cut through neighborhoods really easily, and I almost feel like we need more support from the police department on enforcement during these construction projects in East Omaha where we have those cut through issues, because we saw the same thing on Grover Street. There was no roundabouts, but I mean, people were just flying through these residential streets.
So again, it's not necessarily I hate the operation of a roundabout, although we do get some, but it's more of these other issues.
I got an interesting story for you. So years ago, we were proposing a roundabout on Highway 59 near Harvard. And the city administrator at the time says, you can't expect these people to not drive roundabout. I said, well, what's your downtown? It's a series of one-way streets around your courthouse. It's the same damn thing. It's just a bigger footprint. But yeah, people can be short-sighted.
I think we got a little pushback when we had our public meeting for the West Shore roundabout at 275 in West Dodge. We proposed to close that and detour traffic fully, and we presented it as an accelerated construction option. Otherwise, it would take a full season plus. I mean, these county roads, you're gonna have to drive these county roads for maybe half the season, 3/4 of the season, but it's necessary evil in order to make the phasing more complicated.
But the other side, like the property negotiations, some of the arguments are like, well, I've never seen one fully residential like this. And you know, I keep telling them, well, you're gonna see more.
Do you guys have access to modular templates that like you could just throw down and just?
I keep kind of joking about threatening with that, but.
I don't think it's necessarily a threat, but it can be an education tool, right? Like, I think I use straw bottle to represent mini ones for a neighborhood event, but making it more of an event type of feature for the neighborhood as both community building, placemaking, and education forum. Straw bottle, yeah, you can put out there, you only need a couple people, you're good, but it doesn't last at all. Modular forms that you can leave out for several months and let the neighborhood experience some of that could work. I've also seen just people just paint.
And we do have some modular projects that are coming, you know, 32nd Avenue, for example, we have a pending modular roundabout construction there.
I think I am very interested in helping to pursue this, so we're happy to talk more and how we could help as a region, because this is a common complaint that keeps cropping up, whether you're in Gretna, Papillion, or City of Omaha. We're facing some more similar issues with regard to cut throughs, with regard to neighborhood groups saying no more roundabouts. And just the sheer cost of trying to do signal maintenance. I think we don't have enough staff to be able to go out and do all the signal maintenance on all the signals that we might need, and roundabouts offer a simpler solution that just takes a little to get used to.
Perfect opportunity for planning and demonstration, right?
And we do plan to add some money to our Safe Streets for All, or some large roundabouts. Again, you know, if one of the larger issues is, you know, I don't want the construction period of roundabout. A modular roundabout does not have a extended street track. It doesn't address that issue because obviously it goes in a couple of days. It's fairly, so we'll keep pushing, we're gonna keep working it, but we've had some challenges.
Sounds like there's one specific location, you can tell us where that location was that had to push back.
It's Elmer. Apparently that takes a black X.
That's what happens.
In your neighborhood in mine, Eric.
Last update I want to give, it's not necessarily a direct transportation issue, but I thought this group might be interested. We just completed a pilot project through our mayor's office, a homeless coordinator, on a direct to housing project for, there's an encampment at Carter Lake Shore Drive, just south of Cornish, which is on the west side of Carter Lake, near the south end, that western bow. And that we just housed the last person from that encampment. The residents of the encampment did the cleanup themselves, so really successful project there that I would see as a benefit going forward. That will address that issue.
Beltline 3A and Gerard Street continue. We are finding adjacent stormwater infrastructure that we are working with the city to resolve as part of the trail projects. I'll follow up on that. And then Beltline 4 construction will kick off this summer. And then we had the PCM 0 and the site visit for the Elkhorn River Trail Bridge between the rec area on the east side and the top of the levee on the west side. Moving from the preliminary scope into the final scope. That is a state TAP project, not in MAPA's TIP, but a good project because it connects to, I think the Waterloo projects are also state TAP, but there has been discussion about other funding for not part of the same federal project, which I would like very clearly on the record. The potential continuation of West Maple Trail up toward Elkhorn in the future. And so just highlighting that we want to work with Douglas County, City of Omaha, Waterloo, everybody in the area, Valley even, to focus on this bridge will enable additional transportation connectivity in both directions. It is a large boundary breaking project, which is why it was funded through state TAP. So very glad to be out there, working on TSML Loop Bridge, and then moving forward with what we expect will be a couple of years to get through the permitting stuff, but then having a great pristine project out there for the community to enjoy.
I just wanted to update on the North Saddle Creek Streetscape project. We had a slight phasing change, so Saddle Creek Road is still open for the time being. Switched to just doing some work on the peripheral streets, Charles and Seward, and then 149 Ave are all influenced on the outskirts there, but Saddle Creek should be open for a month.
Updates from Metro.
The update from the planning department in Omaha would be our comprehensive plan will be having listening sessions in each council district throughout the summer. So, if you're in Omaha, come to us.
Final piece of the Council Center State project is getting closer. They poured the bridge deck over Madison Avenue. And so I think the schedule is to have it open by this fall.
On my vetted stuff, the trail underpass for 370 is going ahead of schedule, so I'm most likely going to be letting it in the next fiscal year. So we're probably in the 27 year to have the have that under construction. The second phase of the 6th Street / Portal Road project, got considered as a highly likely EA. So, that got, pushed to an RFP, so I'm in the RFP process with the state for that right now. Our UBAS is supposed to start up, first part of June. We're in the process of doing our panel repair program right now. Everything else is going pretty smooth overall. So I've got some other projects that I'm in the process of designing downtown area, but nothing too crazy.
Go to the last slide. I think that's the biggest thing for MAPA. Blah, blah. Hey, council officials again, coming up June 18th. We're gonna be at the venues at the Greenery. David Robb, Omaha Airport Authorities, to give this insight into the construction taking place at our lovely Athlete Field. So come on, come all, please register. Link available on the bottom, like and subscribe. It's like a few year things. Overall, I think I'm very proud of a lot of the work and great effort our staff has put in. It's been pretty nonstop on our end, trying to get a lot of things through, especially this comprehensive safety action plan has taken a lot, and there will be much more to do in months, years, etc. Right now, we're starting to shift gears towards our metropolitan transportation plan, our big 5-year planning effort. So you'll hear more about that in the coming months. Travel demand model, I know many of you have been waiting on it. Again, we're trying to get through that as quickly as possible. We're still going through our process. We hope to have something in the next month or so. And last but not least, I want to thank Elle for all her work. This is her last TTAC meeting with us. She's moving on, but just want to take the time and thank her for all her great work while she was at MAPA. So thank you very much. That's it for MAPA.
Anybody have anything else? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Second. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Right now, it's like.
Absolutely.